Welcome back to another episode of the Constructive Liberty Podcast. Today, I am joined by Sasha Rogers, who has spent over a decade working as a licensed counselor and healthcare professional, recently transitioned from working for an agency to now running her own successful remote coaching program, while also being a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids under 2.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, a super mom. Sasha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So why don't you give a little background into who you are and how you came to, like, what led you to becoming a counselor and then even transitioning into the coaching space?
Definitely. So I enjoy talking with people and just getting to know different people. And I actually had a mentor in my master's program at OU that he is actually the one that guided me into the counseling realm. And he thought that that would be something that I would actually do really well in. So that's how I got started in it. I think we definitely all have our stories, but there was no divine encounter that happened that led me to say, I'm going to be a counselor. So that's how I ended up in the field. And I worked in the field interning actually at the agency that I was at, working for free at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
And then I got hired on there, and I was lucky enough just to move my way up in that corporate agency and ended up really having the top of my game there. And like so many other professionals and people in the mental health and service field, was just feeling really burnt out, stressed out, a lot of things that were within my control, but also out of my control. And during COVID, I had some hard decisions to make, and I was pregnant with I had my son, my first kiddo, and that forced me to make some hard decisions and transitions. And I decided to go all in on remote coaching, and that suits my personality so well. And I feel like I'm able to do what I'm really passionate about now. So that led to all the transition.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things you mentioned was you talked about working at 5 a.m. for free. You know, a lot of people, I've talked to people that do some work for free, and I've talked to some people that work at 5 a.m., but working at 5 a.m. for free is outside of what most people are willing to do. How was that for you? And did that last long for you?
It did last quite a while. I had a certain number of hours that I had to get as far as my degree goes. And that was where I chose to be and where the opportunity was. And you're right. I never considered myself an early morning person. And I also was in my early 20s at that time. So life looked a lot different.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of mornings of dragging myself out of bed. But I knew that's what needed to happen. And I believe that gave me that discipline and really showed that agency that is like, I'm committed, I'm here. And I think that's also what allowed me to grow when new opportunities came up, that they saw that I'm willing to put in the work. So,
right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Followed along.
You also mentioned, you came up in the counseling space, and a lot of people kind of confuse counseling and coaching. What's the relationship between those two fields, and how, I guess maybe what's different now for you being in the coaching space versus the counseling space?
Definitely. So in the counseling space, we're governed by a certain board. And so there's a lot of regulations and codes of conduct and everything like that we have to follow. So I feel like that's really the main thing when it comes to the counseling space, is we have certain guidelines. The coaching space doesn't necessarily have any guidelines. It's more, you're free to coach and be who you are, be more authentic, I feel like, speak more freely, disclose information. So the counseling side was something that I really enjoyed, and I'm able to apply that skill set that I have. But coaching just is so much more along the lines of suiting my personality, and we don't necessarily have that box that we have to fit into.
Right. Yeah.
And it's allowed me to actually work outside of even just my state where I'm licensed in. So I'm able to have clients all across the United States, even globally now, which is awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Is there a different focus on the two fields?
So in my coaching, what I focus on is my passion for health and then also really working on the mental side of things. So I focus on nutrition and fitness and do all the programming and things like that. But I'm also be able to really dig into, what are those self-sabotaging behaviors? What are those limiting beliefs that you have? What are those things that have held you back or can put you in this cycle that a lot of people want
Right.
to learn how to break? So I'll do a lot of personal development along with my coaching.
Gotcha. Yeah. From my understanding, which I'm a coach as well, I've never been in the counseling side of it, but from
Hmm.
my understanding, it seems like the counseling is more focused on the past, whereas coaching is more helping you bring the future that you want. Would you say that's right?
I think everybody has their own counseling methodology that they work from. And
Okay.
even for me, I was so focused on like, we can dig into some of the past, but I'm really big on like, let's not let that dictate where you are today and your future. So the past is for us to learn and grow from. We all have those
Yeah.
challenges, but how are we going to apply it and move forward? So for me, that was my type of coaching and counseling, the way that I
Right.
approached it and looked at it. So I think everybody has a little bit of their own. We have a lot to
Gotcha.
pull from.
Yeah, there's a lot of experience out there, and I hear so many people say we learn from experience, and experience comes through failure. But I like to try to learn from other people's experiences so that I can skip that step. And I think
Yep.
coaching really bridges that gap. It's learning from other people's experience and shrinking that time to achieve a result that you want.
I
That's
love
that's
that.
kind of how have come to look at it. So how many
Mhm.
years did you spend in the counseling space before you decided to make that transition?
So I started doing coaching while I was still counseling and
Okay.
working for an agency. And we had a brick and mortar gym, and I did a lot of coaching and really worked on the personal development and the mindset side of things. Given a lot more one-on-one attention with clients that we
Right.
actually had in our gym. And then once COVID hit and we closed down, we were forced to, and we went full on remote with our coaching. And we opened back up and we were able to see that we actually got so much better results working with people one on one and being able to give that attention that we
Right.
decided to completely close down our physical location and go full on remote.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Okay. So were you full time coaching before COVID hit?
Yes. So I actually was a counselor working for an agency, and then we had a brick and mortar gym and was a coach at our gym as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I,
So
I missed that whole
multiple,
transition.
yep, multiple things going on. And
Yeah.
then, yep, after COVID hit and everything, we're just like, we're going to revamp, what we do and what our program looks like instead of being so much, brick and mortar, come into the gym, work out, in and out,
Yeah.
but more of like, let's dig
That's
into things outside of fitness.
that's a lot of turmoil to try to navigate as a fairly new business, especially one that's maybe not as widely well known or accepted.
Hmm.
To have an established way that you do business and then boom, that shuts down and you have to pivot to something else. I imagine that took a lot of late nights and probably some tears trying to navigate that.
Definitely tears of, like, this is great, but also a lot of frustration. And we
Yeah.
honestly dealt with a lot of really upset clients at the time because they didn't want to see our gym close. We had people that had been
Yeah.
with us for years and they were really upset that we made that decision. And it was hard because we had a newborn right in the middle of that
Wow.
too. So we're
Yeah.
like, we have to make the best decision for our family. And so that was a hard transition for us.
I bet. I'm sure. What are some of the things that you had to overcome, even beyond the changing your whole business model, but like some of the fears and maybe deeper challenges with inside of that you worked through?
A lot of fear. I'm a person that likes to be in control and I like a lot of
Mm,
certainty.
yeah.
And that was not there at all. It was, I at that exact same time is when I was almost given an ultimatum in the agency that I worked for over 10 years as well.
Gotcha.
They were going to close down my central office. And so I was going to have to choose to either be on the road all the time, or they couldn't afford to keep me.
Wow.
And I was in the middle of maternity leave at that time. And I was like, I cannot be on the road all the time. I have a 6-week-old child. So at that time, it was, this is it. What do I want to do? And we had talked about me leaving my role in that agency for some years. It's something that my partner wanted me to do. He saw the stress that came along with it. And he was like, just do this. Go all in on yourself. Like, let's do this. And he was really excited. I was really nervous. So I had to overcome a lot of fear, and that fear of, are we going to fail? I have this new little life depending on me. Like, that's not even an option. We have to. So it was a lot of uncertainty. It was hard to break through for me.
I'm sure all of that, it's a lot of factors, and we all face, one or two factors at a time, but to pile some of those on top of each other,
yes.
it just greatly increases the challenges that you face, for sure. Sorry, I have a golden retriever at my feet that's moving around, walking around, and trying to bother me here.
That's so okay.
How is it that you work with your clients today? Because you mentioned you have a gym in the fitness space. Is that right?
We don't any longer. We're completely remote.
Right. Now, how do you work with your clients today?
So we are almost primarily all upon referrals. We have a lot of referrals that come to us from people that we have helped. And then we do all of our marketing and everything organically ourselves. So coming in the door, most people are looking for, fitness, nutrition. And so we actually do all of our programming. We develop them a custom nutrition plan. And then from there, we begin to really deep dive into, what are the bigger issues that are going on. So I always tell them, I'm like, I'm willing to go as deep as you want to go. And so really being able to develop some really good relationships.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. It is a challenge wearing all those hats in any kind of business. All the marketing, the developing, like you said, even like there's just so many things to do. And on top of that, being a mom of such young ones, what are some of the challenges that you face combining those two? Because I mean, being a mom is a full-time career in itself. And then having your coaching business on top of that, I imagine there's some challenges there too that you have to navigate.
Yes. So,
and while you answer that, I'm going to let my dog out.
Yeah, go for it. So with that is a lot of schedule and time management for us. So I did discover that being a mom is definitely one of the hardest jobs out there. And so my son is almost 3. At 2, he was diagnosed with autism. Oh. So that threw another thing in the mix. I saw some things early on. He was a really challenging child, to be completely honest. And like during that transition, talk about a lot of tears. I didn't understand what I was doing wrong as a new mom and why I had such an upset child all the time and all these things. But come to find out, he had some special needs that we needed to be able to adjust and meet. So now we have, a lot of therapies with him. David and I both run our business and work from home. We have both kiddos home with us. And so for us, there is a lot of looking at our schedules, communication, coordination in order for us to be able to do things like this, schedule our meetings, make sure we have kids where they need to be, because they're not in daycare, they're not in school yet. So we have a lot of moving parts over here,
to say the least. Yes, I'm sure. Now, did you say his name's David?
Yes.
Is he also a coach, or can y'all work together kind of in that business? Because oftentimes if you and a partner have two completely separate businesses, there's not a whole lot of overlap. But I find it interesting. Like my wife and I both have a service business. We each run our own service businesses. So there's a lot of overlap in the things that we do and how we can help each other. And I was just curious how that plays into your relationship.
Yes. So we both coach. David's been in the health and fitness industry for over 16 years now.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so that's always been his passion. He was, 100% in the gym whenever we had the gym and everything. And I was more the part-time person because I had my own career going on as well.
Right.
And we honestly never knew if we could work together. We each have pretty strong minded leadership roles.
Yeah.
So we've been really pleasantly surprised that we're able to each play to our strengths. So we do each coach. So we coach our clients ourselves. Like we each have our own caseload, if you will, of clients that we help. And then, of course, we're both available to both of them, whoever each person feels like they can click with the
Right.
best. So
Gotcha.
yes, we run business together as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's cool. I love seeing that when couples can work together, good enough to not only live together and stay together, but also manage a business together. That's a lot of together time.
It is.
And, no matter how well you get along, there's times when personalities clash. So it's awesome that y'all can work together that well. I want to go back to something you talked about in when you worked as a counselor. You talked about burnout. What are some of the signs of burnout that somebody can identify? Because I think we all face that from time to time. What are some of the signs that people should look for, and how do you today work to keep from burning out with everything that you have going on now?
It's definitely an area that I'm passionate about, and I feel like I personally went through and didn't necessarily see all the signs because it's hard when you're caught up in it. You're like,
Yeah.
this is just my day to day. This is what my life looks like. I mean, even now being a parent, it's like there's days that I feel like I am burnt out. Like there's a lot that comes along with that.
Yeah.
So being able to just really recognize those things within yourself, I think it varies a little bit person to person. Does it come more in the form of just feeling like overwhelmed and anxious and not ever really being able to turn off your mind to, I can't get out of bed. I am just exhausted and I sleep and I don't know why. And I think a lot of those symptoms can present itself differently with different people. So those would be some of them. Just I can't think straight. I feel completely overwhelmed and anxious. I don't even want to get out of bed to go to work. I don't know if you've ever been guilty of it, but I know this was one of mine. It was just like I just wanted to hit snooze over and over again, just forecasting what the day had in store. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to wake up because I don't even want to deal with all the shit that's about to come with today.
Yeah. Wow.
So those were signs, even for me personally, that I was like, I was burnt out. Like I was at my end. And then just I didn't even really realize we had a gym. I worked out. I felt like I was fairly healthy, but I felt so anxious all the time. And I could not even physically get the body that I wanted to have. It didn't matter how much I worked out. It was like I could not lose weight. I could not develop the muscle and the toneness that I wanted to have. And I think so much of that actually stemmed from how burnt out I was, how overwhelmed and stressed out I was in my job. And not until I was out of it and began to see the actual impacts that learning how to manage that and to change that for my life had an impact on so many different things.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I can see how it would impact every area of life. Like just if you can't sleep, you can't turn off your brain and you can't sleep, it's going to be hard to get up, hard to fulfill the obligations that you have on day to day. And it compounds on itself. How do you start to get a handle on that and to reverse that to where you can be a whole person again?
I think being able to start picking it apart and just one thing at a time. I work with so many different, even just women on, how can we get 1% better? today? Like, what's one thing that we can do that helps you feel more in control, that is giving to yourself? Instead of, we look at, I think all of us, especially even in, if we are really high achievers and even professionally, it's like we're always looking for, it's like, what's the next thing? Where can I give?
Right.
What can I do? And we need to be able to take a step back and like, okay, well, what can I do for myself first? That it's okay to make yourself a priority, so that way you can be better professionally, at home, in your relationships. And it's like, you have to prioritize yourself in order to fulfill all the other priorities that are in your life.
Yeah. What is there something that you would say has the biggest effect on staying mentally strong and preventing burnout or even coming back from it? Like, if there was one factor that you had to start with, where do you start with that?
So for me, a big thing, and a big word that I use is just emotional management. And it's like, you have to become aware of the emotions that begin to really drive your thoughts and your behaviors. And you have to be able to manage those emotions, so that way we react in a way that we want to react and that's serving us, and not just being more proactive instead of reactive to certain
Yeah.
situations. So for me, emotional management is huge. Something that I feel like I've put a lot of work into personally. I feel like it's something that I'm really good at, is to be able to look at myself and be like, I'm at a 10 right now. Like, it needs to come down, because I'm going to treat my spouse ugly. I'm going to not
Right.
respond to the kids that I want to. I'm not going to be able to be present when I'm talking with someone. So something needs to change.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. Is there a resource or a book or something that you recommend to people to help with that? Like, if they're struggling to manage their emotions, or they get caught up in their own head and just can't think right, what's a good resource that people can go to help with that, to get on the right track?
I would say something that's absolutely free to everyone is just start scribbling on a piece of paper.
Mm.
And it journaling, meditation, we're so caught up that it has to look a certain way. And a lot of times we just need to get it out. And so I'm like, just grab a piece of
Yeah.
paper, just start writing some things down, get out what's going on up here. And then you can begin to talk to somebody. It's like, who's your safe person? Do you have a safe person? Do you need somebody that is completely unbiased? And like, that's where I think coaching is such a big
Right.
impact, is like, have a coach, have somebody that's in your corner and that doesn't need you, is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's cool. If somebody wants to reach out to you, do you strictly help people in the fitness space, or are you also in the burnout? Like, what's
Mm-hmm.
the realm of how you work with clients?
So I say that I work in health and personal development. So
Okay.
when you
Gotcha.
come, I feel like I can't help you improve. I want to help you be mentally fit, and I want to help you be
Right.
physically fit.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So whichever avenue somebody comes to me and is like, okay, I'm really depressed. Well, it's like, I'm going to tell you to get outside and walk. And
Mm,
if you eat better, it's going to help your depression. In the same
yeah.
way that if you want to lose weight, it's like, all right, let's get your fitness and your nutrition in check. But there's a reason why you've continued to be overweight or unhealthy. And we have to
Hmm.
figure out what is going on that has led you to not make the choices and the decisions that you need to make.
Yeah.
So, whichever avenue somebody comes in through, but everybody can always reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, is usually the biggest sources that
Okay.
somebody will message and reach out, and they apply for coaching. And I want to know if we're going to be a good fit, because that's important.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Well, I'll definitely have those links in the show notes when the podcast comes out. Is there anything that you would say to somebody today to get started off on the right foot, moving towards the mental health, the physical health, and getting that all to work synergistically? What's the first step somebody listening to this should take alongside of reaching out to you for help?
Mm-hmm. You're thinking about making a change in some area of your life. So you know something is broken. And so whether that's with your physical fitness or your mental fitness, identify what you feel like is broken and needs to be better. And then from there, just come up with one small thing that you can do just today in order to move you in the direction that you want to go.
Gotcha.
And if it's your health, it's like eat one vegetable today, drink a bottle of water. Like it can be so simple, but you need to have those wins. And I believe in just being able to stack some wins and like, you're okay, I'm able to do this. And just to build that confidence. And then, like we were talking about in the very beginning, stay consistent with it. Do it day one, then do it a second day.
Awesome. Sasha, thanks so much for your time. It's been a great and helpful conversation. I love it.
Yeah, it's been a great way to start the day.
All right.